Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media with me, Salailo Makwidiri, on another edition of News and Views, the Friday edition of News and Views. We have a very special and timely interview lined up. Joining us is Declan Kearney's. He's from the Sinn National. He's a Sinn National Chairperson, and we'll be discussing Ireland's recent and significant decision to formally recognize the state of Palestine. This historic move comes amidst heightened tensions in the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and it aligns Ireland with Norway and Spain in a growing wave of European support for Palestinian statehood. We'll be exploring the motivations behind this decision, its potential impact on the Israeli-Palestine peace process, and what it means for international diplomacy and human rights. Declan, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Salam Media.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
First and foremost, maybe we can start by, you explaining the significance of Ireland's decision to recognize Palestine at this moment in time.
I think it's really important that Ireland has taken this stance, and in conjunction with the Spanish and the Norwegian governments, it sends a very strong message that our country believes that this is now the time for recognition of the state of Palestine, at a time when the genocidal war by Israel against the Palestinian people in Gaza is continuing, and whilst the aggression in the West Bank against our Palestinian sisters and brothers appears to be intensifying. And this is a clear statement of not only recognition of the state of Palestine, but the right of the Palestinian people to national self-determination. And I hope that it will result in Ireland taking a much stronger and proactive role in building an international consensus to isolate the actions of the Israeli state in Palestine at this time, to grow momentum in the efforts being made within the United Nations, and also to encourage other European states to follow the lead that has been shown by Ireland, Spain, and Norway.
I want us to focus a bit, on the background of this decision. If you can just share with us some of the key factors that led to this decision by the Irish government, and what role did your party, the Sinn Féin, play in advocating for this recognition of Palestine?
Firstly, the announcement by the government is absolutely in line and consistent with the popular will of the Irish people. There is a huge well of solidarity here in Ireland for the Palestinian people, and that is historic in nature. When we look into the faces of our Palestinian sisters and brothers, we recognize an historic experience which has been shared by the Irish people, of colonization, of forced starvation, of displacement, and forced migration. So the connections between Ireland and Palestine have lasted for a very long time indeed. And since the onset of the genocidal war in Gaza, Irish people in their tens of thousands have rallied in solidarity with our Palestinian sisters and brothers. This announcement gives expression to that popular will. The specific genesis of this announcement rests in the fact that my party, Sinn Féin, which is the largest party in Ireland, the lead party of opposition in Dublin, in the Irish Parliament, but also now leading the power-sharing coalition established under the Good Friday Agreement in the north of Ireland, brought forward a motion in 2014 to the Irish Parliament, calling for recognition of the state of Palestine at that time, that is 10 years ago. And that motion was unanimously endorsed by the Irish Parliament. However, successive Irish governments did not enact the mandate of the Parliament. So recognition has been effectively sitting on the back burner within the Irish political system. And I'm glad now and very pleased that finally and at last in response to the gravity of the situation in Gaza and across Palestine, this particular Irish administration has finally accepted the imperative of announcing formal recognition of the state of Palestine, and that will take effect from the 28th of May.
I think from a South African point of view, this is a very welcome decision. But in practical terms, how do you see this decision affecting practically the people of Palestine on the ground as they survive this ongoing genocide and ethnic cleansing by the Israeli occupying forces?
Sinn Féin is absolutely committed to ensuring that all of the political, democratic, diplomatic levers at the disposal of the Irish state are used in the interests of the Palestinian people at this time. What's required immediately is an urgent, permanent, and unconditional ceasefire in Palestine. Israeli forces need to be withdrawn from Gaza and from the West Bank. And only intensified international pressure will, in our view, have the effect of isolating the position of the Israeli state and ensuring that other states, which to date have been complicit in support for the Israeli state, change their positions and begin to apply diplomatic and political pressure to the Israelis to end this war and to step back from the brink and to accept that the only way forward can be not only through ceasefire, upscaled and unimpeded humanitarian aid to Gaza, but also a process which leads to the achievement of a Palestinian national sovereign state. And I believe that the announcement by the Irish government yesterday should be seen in context with the courageous position which has been taken by the South African government at the International Court of Justice in The Hague in demanding that Israel is held to account for its genocidal war and actions in Palestine and specifically in Gaza at this time. And we need to mobilize as many interventions on the international stage as possible to maximize the pressure upon Israel, but also to move the stance of other important global powers who have not, in fact, accepted the need for a permanent unconditional ceasefire and to end the arming and the funding of the Israeli murder and war machine.
I want us to touch a bit on, Irish and Israeli relations. The two countries are, the closest, but there is some sort of, cordial relationship between the two. How do you think this decision is going to affect diplomatic relations between Ireland and Israel?
Ultimately, we all have responsibility as citizens of the world, and certainly governments, international governments, have a responsibility to stand on the right side of history. And Palestine now poses for the world, for the international community, an existential moral challenge. So regardless to diplomatic norms or the conventions that normally apply in relation to managing geopolitical relations, when there is an injustice being seen and an injustice being inflicted, as is happening in Gaza and in the West Bank at this time, then it is absolutely morally, politically, and diplomatically incumbent on all right-thinking citizens and all right-thinking governments to stand on the right side of history and to not only uphold, but to seek to enforce international law. And therefore, the Irish government has made absolutely the correct decision in this case. This is about the primacy of international law, international humanitarian law, and respecting the rights, the human rights and the national and democratic rights of the Palestinian people, which have been subjugated for far too long. So it is time for change. This is a watershed moment. This is time for a step change by international governments, and I'm glad that the Irish state is playing its part in showing the way.
And I think for some time now, particularly in the beginning, the end of last year to the beginning of this year, we've seen, an increased change and challenging of the Israeli narrative when it comes to Palestine, particularly in Europe. And this move is largely led by Spain. What's behind this? What's behind this change in mindset when it comes to the approach in the Israeli-Palestine, debacle, so to say?
I think it's one of absolute abject revulsion at the nature of the genocide, the war crimes that are being carried out, the use of starvation as a weapon of war, and increasing numbers of international states and governments coming to the position that this is an absolutely untenable and unsustainable situation, and that action is therefore required. And this, I believe, is what sits at the heart of the decisions and announcements that have been made by the Irish, the Spanish, and the Norwegian governments.
And I don't think you can ever talk Israel and Palestine without talking the United States. They are largely at the heart, of this genocide. Coming into diplomacy, is this going to in any way affect Ireland's relationship with the United States of America? That holds a clear stance when it comes to who it supports, which is obviously being Israel, and also funding this genocide and making sure that this killer machinery keeps on moving. Irish-American relations, what can we deduce going forward after this decision by the Irish government?
Let me say at the very outset, American policy towards Palestine has to change. And the funding and the arming of the Israeli murder machine must stop. Sanctions need to be applied, not only by forward-looking and progressive states such as Ireland, Spain, and Norway. Sanctions need to be applied to Israel by the United States until such times as the Israeli approach is changed. That must take the form of a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, a withdrawal and demilitarization of the situation in both Gaza and the West Bank, and for humanitarian aid on an unimpeded basis to be released into Gaza so that the process of reconstruction at a humanitarian and a physical level can commence. Ireland is a very small country in our global village, but I do think that Ireland has much to bring to this issue. And yes, we do enjoy very good relations with the United States. And that's one of the reasons why I hope this decision by the Irish state will be influential on the foreign policy orientation of the United States towards Palestine, and specifically towards the actions of the Israeli state at this particular point in time.
And
requirements. We offer clean, hygienic abattoir-style and refrigeration facilities. Sheep, goats and cows are available at competitive market-related prices, direct to the public. We slaughter, slice and distribute on your behalf. But that's not all. Introducing Meatmasters Halal Butchery, our sister company situated on our farm in Lenasia. Unbeatable prices on lamb, beef and chicken. Lenasia Livestock and Poultry. Livestock is our business. We are SANHA approved. Telephone 011 857 1774. Call now.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with many appeal organizations in Gaza.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
The views and opinions expressed on this advert are those of the political party and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Salam Media.
South Africans have all experienced frustration by political parties and fake promises. Sun Party is a political party with a difference. We don't just talk, we act with a tried and tested growth plan, ensuring a brighter future for every child and person, economic opportunities for all. Guaranteed economic recovery, reviving our economy, creating jobs and stability. Real change that uplifts every South African. Implementing the right policies rooted in evidence and results. True radical transformation. Bold steps toward equality and justice. Structural reform required. Building a stronger nation. It's time for true change. Vote Sun Party. Proven leadership, economic growth, and a principled approach.
The views and opinions expressed on this advert are those of the political party and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Salam Media.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, buckies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Coming to the general public of Ireland itself, is there a consensus regarding this decision? Are all, citizens of the country happy with the stance taken by the government? What have been the responses from the public been like?
Very positive and overwhelmingly welcoming of the announcement by the government. I mentioned in my earlier remarks that there is an historic affinity and solidarity between Irish citizens and our Palestinian sisters and brothers. And one of the reasons that the government has moved at this point in time is not only in direct response to the savagery of what is happening in Gaza at this time, it's also because the Irish people are asking for the government to do much more. And the same applies in, I believe, Spain and Norway. We should remember that the West is not monolithic on these matters. And whilst some outrageous stances have been taken by particular European leaders in support of Israel and against the rights of the Palestinian people, that does not reflect a monolithic position within the European Union. I'm confident that in the coming weeks, we will see more European states following the lead of Ireland, Spain, and Norway. It's also important to remember at the same time that the United States is not in any way monolithic, or certainly any longer monolithic in its approach towards Israel and in relation to the nature of the war which is being waged against the Palestinian people, and indeed the actions of aggression which are taking place in the West Bank. So we have in recent weeks seen shifts in the public and the political position of the US administration, both in terms of the White House, the National Security Council, and the State Department. I perceive very clear divergences in relation to the positions that previously were adopted. And again, this is another reason why I believe the position taken by the Irish government can be so influential at a point in time when the monoliths are breaking down, divergences are opening up. That sense of revulsion is increasingly gaining traction towards the behavior of the Israeli state and its murder machine in Palestine. And as a consequence, pivots are beginning to develop in relation to the public positions adopted by key sections of the American administration. And we are seeing the same happening within the European Union. So it is my firm hope that this type of leadership announced yesterday by Ireland, Spain, and Norway, following on from the monumental leadership demonstrated by the South African government, and particularly by the South African Foreign Minister, Naledi Pandor, I believe that all of this can grow and have a cumulative effect in creating an irresistible momentum across global diplomatic and political opinion to bring increased pressure to bear upon the Israelis to do what now must happen: end the war, announce a permanent and unconditional ceasefire, and start to treat the Palestinian people as human beings.
And just lastly, Declan, beyond recognition, what steps do you believe Ireland and the international community at large, should be taking to advance, a long-lasting peace in Gaza, and some sort of solution, whether it's a two-state solution or it's other proposals that are being put forward, by other stakeholders? What more can be done from your point of view after this very, very bold move that Ireland is taken?
In reinforcement of the stance that has been taken to recognize the state of Palestine, that now needs to be upscaled in the form of political and economic sanctions, which need to be applied until such times as the Israeli state backs off and adopts the only correct pathway in terms of a cessation and the withdrawal of all of its forces, and an end to its aggression against the Palestinian people. So that must be an absolute prerequisite. Moving forward, however, this war will eventually end. It must end immediately, sooner rather than later. And that must give way, therefore, to a talks process, an inclusive talks process, which involves all sides. And I believe that there is a need for an international global consensus to develop, which is true to the needs and the priorities of the Palestinian people, that is consistent with international law, that recognizes Palestine's right to self-determination and the right of our Palestinian sisters and brothers to secure a Palestinian national sovereign state. And it is our responsibility as international leaders to do everything that we can, along with our Palestinian sisters and brothers, all of the political leaderships in Palestine and Palestinian civic society, with the assistance of the United Nations, to ensure that a durable, good faith, fully inclusive peace process is now established. And that must be beyond the implementation of sanctions, the burning aspiration and commitment of the international community to act as one, to work as one, in direct conjunction with the Palestinian leaderships to ensure that a lasting peace process is achieved and that future generations of Palestinian children are never subject to the brutality, the carnage, and to the savagery and the genocide that has been inflicted on so many thousands of Palestinian children over the course of the last 7 months, and prior to that, for the last 70 years, as the Palestinian people have continued to be subject to a cruel occupation and apartheid system.
I think we're going to leave it there, Declan. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time, and also sharing those very important insights coming from out of Ireland. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
That was Declan Kearney, national chairperson of Sinn Féin National Party there out in Ireland, giving us insight on that decision. Very, very bold and important decision taken by the Irish government to recognize the state of Palestine. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with the show. Keep tuned in to Salam Media.